So please come back and gather round and let's hear your experience. So let's just take a moment to remember back to what was it like to do a lesson that was comprised only of instructions.
Sleepy.
Sleepy?
I found the lack of questions just really dropped me into a really quiet state. It was nice, but yeah, quite sleepy. So,
yep, cool.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it because it was sleepy as well, but you're absolutely free to wander wherever you want to. And I find it just as easy to notice things then. Like even if I was directed at something, yes, I can notice it, but my mind's usually somewhere else anyway. So yep. I found it quite liberating.
Wonderful.
Yes, I'm in Chelsea's camp.
Cool. So maybe you could think about when is it useful to be kind of skeletal in the instructions and with what sort of group of people, and when might you want to vary that? And it's probably unlikely that there are many cases where you would teach a whole lesson like that, but maybe there would be portions of lessons. Any other?
I think what also made a difference, though, was that your directions were often invitational. And so that kind of gave the...
How did I do that?
You said was like allow.
It was really hard not to ask questions sometimes. Yeah. Yes, yeah, there were some things that I particularly attempted to convert a question into a direction and a suggestion into a direction. Okay, and so then coming to only asking exploratory questions. What was that like?
That was really good too.
Wonderful. What did you notice?
That was a bit more...
That's a vague...
Yeah, that was a vague answer.
Open question.
Yeah. I think for me, the difference was that just the directions allowed me to get into sensing.
Mm-hmm.
With the questions, it allowed me to get into exploring and actually being more specific in my mind about the... I suppose it was more specific sensing, because it was more specific to do with lengths and to do with the qualities and things like that, whereas directions were just the directions was a lot more free form sensing. Yeah. So it's the specificness with which you sense.
Yep.
I think changed for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I concur with that, but also in free-form sensing, if you like, tended to stay within my perceived body image. So with someone else coming in with invitations to explore other areas, think, oh, okay, I'm not normally aware of that part of my body. Yeah.
Cool.
She's just putting her hands up. Yeah, I agree with that. They were both valuable. I mean, I liked both, actually. The second one, it was like it highlighted just bits of body image that were missing. You know, it's like you're tending to that, but it expanded that body image. You go, oh, well, that's been involved or that's happening over there, or kind of expanding that awareness more. Because when you've got a specific instruction, well, you know, like directed, it's kind of you paying attention to that directed instruction and maybe missing other things that are going on, which can be pointed out with that open exploratory questions.
Great.
And because we observing only one person, you can make clear distinctions and where she's not paying attention to. So that's what we're talking about before too. Like it's a conversation, clear conversation. Oh, she's not, or he's not thinking what is going on in that. So I'm gonna drive the attention to that. When it's a big class, I guess it's different, but when it's one person, you notice, and it's became more one. I don't know, like.
So when you were teaching yesterday, I mean, some of you had 2 people and some of you had 3 or 4. What was it that kind of prompted you to ask a question? Was it one person that you thought, maybe they would all be interested in this?
Yeah.
So a class is made up of lots of one persons.
Just to be a bit different, in the when you were teaching it, I did have I was feeling a little bit fatigued this morning, and I had moments where, rather than exploring in that space, I just was disengaging. Yeah.
Yep.
And then as Sue was asking those questions, I found it kind of re-sparked my interest in the process. Yep. But then I just wanted to go explore my own questions, and you were asking other questions, and I was like, just go away. I want to explore this other thing that I just thought of. Yeah.
That's true. A really good exploratory question. You do then need time to go and explore it. And of course, we were practicing our exploratory questions, so we tended to do quite a lot of them. But in reality, if you throw one out there that's a good one, the person does need quite a bit of time to go and think about that. So
does that say something about what happens in rests, or how long between comments?
I'll be very quick. Well, it's here. But also having the exploratory questions, but not necessarily having a theme that we were kind of focusing on, made it hard to not be asking like a million different random exploratory questions that you could throw in and completely confuse the situation.
So would having a theme for you help you to link the questions together?
Otherwise, I think there'd be a danger if you were, as a teacher, it'd be, just chuck them all in and see what they do.
Notice this, notice that, what's happening there. Yeah. Have you ever experienced a lesson like that? Yeah. Okay.
In the real life, there is always appreciation of another way of thinking, and then it's possible to incorporate into own experience and way of thinking and how to look at the world. And that today's experience was very similar. Thank you very much. It gave me ability to see, sense, feel, percept myself from the different perspective. And that is really important for me. Yeah.
Cool.
Although there is just, the thing that we've all talked about, which is because we're now have worked with each other for a while, and we know it can get quite synchronous as well, which is lovely.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not quite like it would be, in a class with people you don't know. But Nina had a couple of questions for me that were just brought my attention to a particular place that made an enormous difference to the way I was experiencing the lesson, which was really, they were not directive, but in the exploration, I just got a great deal out of it. It was great.
Can you remember any of them?
Oh yes, one of them was a question about when I was raising my arm, just about the extent to which I was incorporating my chest, and in particular, gosh, we're having a bit. No, it's not the scapula. We've been having a bit of trouble with this morning. Sternum. Thank you. Just not even in my awareness at all, and that was incredibly helpful.
Cool.
I feel like the exploratory questions like really make all the difference in the sense of like compulsive movement. And like it's really easy just to sort of do repetitions and just move, you know, without thinking about anything. And it helps having another person direct through that. It gives a total another experience than you doing it too, because you can't really predict the other person so much, you know, and it just gives but they're still really connecting and you're opening up to what they're saying. And so it directs you in ways that even your habitual questioning and discovery wouldn't lead you down those paths. So yeah, I think that's really, really good.
So when you're preparing a lesson or when you're doing ATM for your own experience, do you rely on other people to ask the questions for you, or can you generate some of those questions to elicit kind of new experience for yourself?
We had the experience of that sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and that you can be really apt at exploration and, knowing thyself, but sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
And it takes someone just to say, is there something in the middle of you that, might be able to could shorten? And you, what? No? And then you have to sort of work through that to get to, oh well, maybe, and that it actually, you require, because it's not within your, lived experience to have any notion that could be a possibility. So these sort of exploratory things aren't saying shorten. There's, it's just, is there something that might be able to move in there?
Yeah, and there's something about this work. We sort of know that learning is more profound when it emerges from within, that we can teach until we're blue in the face. But when we facilitate that opportunity for someone to discover something themselves, it tends to be more impactful. And so the challenge then is, how many different ways can I ask this question until the person discovers that place?
It was nice to watch the discovery. It's really interesting.
It's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very cool.
Now that I'm thinking about it, what's really interesting is that when we prepare a lesson, a lot of it is based on our own experience and our own exploration.
Yep.
And as soon as you're faced with people in front of you who are doing something totally different to what you do, it actually enriches the experience for both. I can share my experience with them, but they sharing their experience with me as well. And I'm beginning to think, oh, wow, this is a real shared learning. And that's when, like, the notes just go out the window and it's just this conversation between students and teacher. Yeah.
I think for me, what it's brought home, just this exercise, which is fabulous for me, because in teaching, when I was doing teaching, I was, more about directions. And in counselling, I realised it was more about vagueness and keeping it as open as absolutely possible. So it's like really vague, not even finishing sentences a lot of times, just going, and...
Someone will always fill the space.
Really vague. And this is like a middle way. It's like a middle way.
Not the middle way.
It's the middle way. So it's a whole new kind of way of thinking about questioning. Yeah, lovely.
So it's nice to colour in some of the middle, but don't get stuck there either. That we need those clear directions, and we need occasional vague questions or suggestions.
Nina had this really interesting image, and I'd just be interested in other people's views, particularly, Beck, your comment about sort of, in a sense, being brought to think about something. She talked about, being in the flow. So there's kind of like a stream that's happening with you know, the movements that each of us were doing, and then the suggestions or the open questions were just kind of like entering the stream with the flow, and then that was good. But sometimes that might slightly, like if you can just go with the imagery, you know, it might slightly sort of move you sort of in a path. But I'm just wondering whether sometimes, though, it's also helpful, sort of the feeling I got back from what you just said was sometimes it's almost like like putting something that sort of causes a little bit of a ripple or something, just to go with the analogy, and then to sort of, you know, calm it out and sort of see the kick flow. You know, I'd just be interested in whether it's kind of quite good to have, like, is it quite good to disrupt that flow sometimes, or is it most effective? I guess people will have different experiences for to go with the flow.
Yes.
I was just very good. I'm just wondering whether constraints, you know, when you introduce a constraint in an ATM, it's a bit like putting a pebble and you're saying, and now what can you do if you limit that movement? Because sometimes you have to compensate in something another way, and that can be an enlightening moment because you're thinking, oh, I can still do that by moving that other bit. So in a way that a constraint is a more directive way of possibly doing that.
The different use of language, so just a different way of phrasing something can mean different. So I was thinking about it, but just hearing it phrased a different way can kind of go, ah. Yeah, so language, and then maybe saying the same thing, but maybe saying it in slightly different ways might, in a group, might be also helpful.
Yep. So I'm kind of curious about what were you paying attention to in your pupil and in yourself that helped those questions to formulate in your mind? How did you know what to say? And how would you know when to kind of go with the flow or when to chuck a rock in?
I think we're a bit reliant on our own experience to know what the pupil's doing. And it was really handy I went first, so when I went second I could actually watch and feel at the same time. So it made a big difference, and it highlighted the importance of us doing so many ATMs, so that we can look at the student and feel what they're doing and then try and guide a bit better. And it's guiding for a purpose is much easier to find a question too.
Yes.
If you've got that what you're trying to, where you're trying to get them, and share with them, you can, if you have that in mind, the questions just start to flow because you've got this mission, and you can get there.
Or as somebody else said, you've got the conversation between what you're seeing and what's emerging for you in that moment.
I'll miss that. A common thread, yeah.
Certainly if you have a thread for the idea of your lesson, what you would like the lesson to be about, that helps. Or what commentary, what idea from the Feldenkrais method you're wanting to give people an example of. But what I'm hearing from several directions is part of the preparation of the lesson, part of the preparation to teach is doing it yourself, getting your own experience, and then the rest of it happens in that moment when you're observing what people are actually doing.
It was, I think, in terms of observation, I was fortunate enough to have two people who moved completely differently. And so I'm looking at it and I'm also thinking, where's the movement not happening? So it was looking at the flow, but trying to generate questions from where I couldn't see movement being connected. And I think it comes back to what Beck was saying, is that when you're looking where the movement, you disrupt the habit perhaps when you can recognize the sequence and then find where the sequence doesn't even enter the person's consciousness. And so that was really interesting to observe, because to generate questions that would provoke both people.
Right. Nina's waiting, and then back to Anna. Yep.
Jenny, you just told that we, at least at the beginning of our career, being practitioners or ATM teachers, create equation based on our own experience. Do we, and in some sense, I feel that I'm a constraint, I'm a limitation, because if I don't have the full experience yet, my questions will be based on my senses, my feelings, my understanding. And when then the experience gives the enrich that which I don't have yet, the big experience, isn't it good to share and understand what the other person, and probably very different, the person who basically relying on the floor in Susan's class like that, it's to know his senses, how he senses himself or other person. And it's quite interesting back your view as well. Yeah, and my question is how to create the question which really can widen our limitations of seeing things, sensing feelings as a teacher.
Sometimes we ask questions about things we know about, and sometimes we ask questions about things we don't know about. When we're having a verbal conversation, information is exchanged verbally. When we have a conversation with someone who's moving, information comes in other forms. One of our very clear goals in the way we structure the away from here activities is that you talk to each other and you share experiences. Because for the rest of your Feldenkrais life, you will be each other's greatest resources. So sometimes when I'm teaching in my classes, I'll actually stop and say, this is a question I'd like the answer for. How many of you can actually feel something here? Or what are you noticing? Because I want that information in a way that I can hear it and understand it. Other times I have to kind of guess from what I can see what people might be experiencing. And I'm sure my colleagues and I would all tell you, doesn't matter how long you do it, there's still more to learn. We can still keep practicing and refining our skills. So that's why we're playing the games today, that just to kind of differentiate a little bit and bring to your awareness some of the range of ways we have of communicating, so that perhaps you might notice some or think about them differently as you're teaching or as you're preparing. You know, what else could I ask? And sometimes that'll be related to your theme. And sometimes you might throw in something that you think's completely out of fresh air that will bring interesting information to everyone. Deep, profound, thoughtful silence. I think we've kind of sowed enough seeds for the moment. We'll come back and play with those ideas some more. So last night, Susan gave you some homework to think about one thing that you can proudly claim that you're going to do more of. Yeah, well, you probably do more of that as well. And one thing that you would like to practice and explore more. So,
is it lunchtime or?
No, it's sharing time.
So you can make it, can state it in a way that I feel good about blah blah blah, and I want to work more about. I want to work more on blah blah blah.
For the recording, that was I feel good about, and I want to work more on. Two somethings, or else.
I feel very good in order basically to have the lesson yesterday because I had to prepare twice. I prepared once and then just a few hours before the sleep time, I decided to do it absolutely differently. And it gave me now the understanding that the same lesson can be taught many, many times with the different, probably even outcomes for the students and for the teacher. That is a good thing. And do we need to talk about it? And I want to work on that. Yes.
Okay. I feel good about, in a sense, just delivering the lesson. And Gloria knows because she did the lesson with me that the other person who came could potentially have brought quite a lot of their own to that particular lesson, just synchronicity as it happened. But I just resisted that and delivered the lesson, and I was happy about that. What I would like to work on is endings, the what you take out into the world. Still, I think just because it comes right at the end, didn't really do that much.
I feel good about doing an ATM now because I've avoided it up until now. Apart from with the cat and with my husband and anyway. What I'd really like to work on now is my observational skills, because I can totally tune out and go back into my own world. And there, and so what I was thinking about is what if I can watch, I'll be much more effective because I can see when they frown and when when to tune my actual instructions or to my response to their particular needs rather than to go into my own little world.
Snap, I'd like to improve my... I feel good about a comment actually Susan made, which is I had a little, a little principle of Feldenkrais that I mentioned at the start, and then almost perhaps as luck would have it, I reinforced it through the lesson in a practical way. It was almost like, now this little movement we're doing is a bit, it demonstrates what I said at the start. And I thought I'll try and do more of that, consciously. Not a happy coincidence. And then what I'd like to work on is exactly the same thing, the ability to go off script and adapt the lesson to what I'm seeing, and as I get more relaxed, then I think, I feel more able to do that.
I feel good about my ability to actually guide a lesson now. in my preparation, the penny dropped like the day before, and I'm going, oh, I could take this here, or I could take it there, or it's sort of the cog clicked over. And when we did the lesson, and my wonderful fish on the floor actually went where I wanted them to go, it sort of reinforced that. So I feel good about that. What I want to work on, the first thing I fell in love with Feldenkrais was its obvious simplicity. And I want to try and keep that when I'm out there in the big world and doing HEMs for people. I want to have a real simplicity where they come in, enjoy the movement, and surely there'll be some sort of guided thing there, but keep it really low key and just get them to enjoy and have a simple movement.
I feel good about that I was able to be a little bit more relaxed and make it a little bit more personal, and that I could sort of in the second half be a little bit off script. What I want to work on is just practicing every week, and then with it maybe a different focus every week. I think just the delivery, just getting it, and then just reinforcing and building on there. And just actually applying myself a little bit more, and maybe being a little bit less like Susan and doing everything last minute. That was your own confession.
Yeah.
Everything, actually.
I felt good about my pacing and delivery yesterday, though I went in knowing that I kind of played it quite safe with my choice of what I did and how much I decided to give myself to do within that time frame. So what I would like to work on is my courage to extend myself a bit more and to challenge myself to teach an ATM that's a bit more active, and kind of keeping my students a little more alert, not right going into that I, just my shtick. Yeah.
I feel good about playing yesterday when I was teaching I never felt like Susan was looking or no. Sorry, but I felt really comfortable. It was a little bit of challenge having another teacher with us, so that was a little bit of challenge, but I didn't feel like I was more worried about myself stepping into her room than her stepping in my room. But I felt good about playing even then with the restrictions. What I want to improve is my English, of course, but that's a personal thing. My vocabulary, my consonants, the things that you pointed yesterday, because I think that's gonna enrich my playful moments. Because if I'm getting stuck into something and I don't know what to say, I'm got so in, and I can't finish the sentence sometimes. So, and I'm looking for an urgent word, and it's normally not what I was about to say. So I'm looking like, oh, pay attention to your toes. But it's like the last minute thing that I was thinking of. But come on, you need to finish. So that's really, I know what I want to say, but it's in Spanish, and it's like, oh. So yeah, that's what I work on.
I feel good about probably just the fact that I enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
And I know it's probably a bit of a cop-out to say I would like to work on everything, but it's the truth because I haven't done many at all. So I would just need to work on a bit of everything and doing them.
Your own. I think like probably all of us was just happy that although, you know, there's this crazy nervous anxiety that goes on, that actually when everyone's sitting in front of you, it just dissipates, it disappears. And that I was so involved in what the people were doing on the floor, I hardly really heard or was conscious of everything else around me. So that I was felt like I was very much with them. And I would really like to work on, I feel like the directing and the sensing stuff I'm developing, but I'd really like to work on the getting those sort of the themes and beliefs and things sort of woven through in those little nuggets, I think you called them yesterday, Susan, just, you know, to enhance the pupils' experience of the method.
I was really pleased with the fact that I was able to conform. Because I know it's probably it makes you laugh, but the reality is I've always generated. I have spent my whole life generating my own material, and to conform to someone else's ideas in such, it seems to me, it's very it's really constraining, and I find it it's incredibly confronting in its conformity. So to converge and to not diverge is a real challenge for me. So I was pleased with the fact that I married the form with the intent, and that's what I struggle to try and find all the time.
I always really enjoy teaching ATMs, but when I start to get a little bit, I really feel good about that, and I feel really good about the fact I didn't fall over my words, because whenever I start to get a bit anxious or self-conscious, it all sort of comes out in a jumble. So that was the really good thing. The thing that I think I need to work on, or would like to work on, is the nuggets. I've really struggled with that, and it worked yesterday, except that I got halfway through one, and then we got so engrossed in what everyone was doing, I didn't deliver the punchline.
Come back.
And I didn't realise until afterwards when I was thinking about it. So my challenge is to stay engaged with the class and the students, but also engaged with myself to know what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. Yeah, it's finding that balance.
I was pleased with the fact that I was actually able to fit in 2 lots of educational, psychoeducational babble and 2 imagery things. So I talked. Who knew? That was really good. But I got my wish this morning, because the thing that I really felt like I needed to work on more was questioning, and particularly those comparative kind of compare and contrast kind of questions and explorations. So thank you for this morning. Anna.
He's been naughty. He's got his head on the wall. I keep changing my mind what I'm going to say, but I think what I'm probably most pleased with or satisfied with is I have a bit of a pattern to induce myself with things, and so I ended up picking an ATM that I liked, but that felt like I tend to be a bit like Angela. I can easily teach those quite introverted, kind of meditative ones, you know. But a bigger movement one, I didn't realize the difference of the challenge of that. But I got really stressed a few days before, and I was trying to unpack, you know, what I was stressed about, because it was quite like I'd felt all right about teaching what I'd my practicing before then, and I had a conversation with Jenny and Susan and stuff, and I actually unpacked. And Andrew had said it the same day, but I didn't even get it, that I had this expectation of wanting them to actually get the movement at the end. And that was worried because I couldn't quite instruct that. I wasn't clear about how I could verbalize that. So I'm glad I identified that and stuck with teaching that ATM and actually did it, because it was quite stressful. But then once I unpacked that, it wasn't actually that stressful. And the funny thing was, when I taught it, the bit where they were doing the rolling bit, which is where they just kind of did it. And I was trying to like even give instructions. It was so, that's when I sped up apparently. Susan said I started speaking fast because they're moving faster. I'm like, what did you do? And then I'm like, just roll from left to side, you know, just like, because they were just doing it, you know, it's like, it was really funny. So anyway, I'm glad that I did do that for the experience of it. What I would like to work on is actually getting more experience, like I'm okay with teaching a couple of people, like 4, you know, up the numbers, like 4 or 5 people, getting comfortable with that, but fine tuning everything basically, where ideally, I think if I'm just really in myself and relaxed, which I focused more on last time we taught, then I'd be able to, you know, catch my language, what's coming out of my mouth, be really present to the people, like being able to switch my attention from one thing to another, because I find it's like driving. I'm in that, okay, I'm focusing on the gears, observing, but then I forget about myself, or I focus on myself, forget about the gears. So just being able to have that switching my attention and just getting the practice doing that with more people.
I'm pretty happy with trying. So I did some notes and sort of was pretty, you know, that's like pretty prepared, you know, my style note, and then was able to just deliver a pretty straightforward lesson, and pretty relaxed too, which I was happy with. But not so. I think I could definitely work on the integration into the room. So when people coming in like as people, and then you know, getting into the so-called formality of awareness through movement, and then after that, and also definitely authenticity, because I reckon it's really wonderful when, you know, people drop the nuggets or whatever, and you know, and it's just, you know, natural and themselves. And I don't think I did any of that last time, but it was it was nice anyway. Yeah, but yeah, authenticity and integration.
Thank you very much for doing that. That was really helpful. Well, I'm going to speak on Jenny's behalf without checking with her, but I think we both find that really helpful. And thanks for being really articulate and honest, and you know, like really sharing. That's much appreciated. Now, I do have, before we go for lunch, I am a little bit excited because, as you know, and thank you to Jenny for taking such a wonderful morning. I'm quite pissed off that I missed it, but I'm also quite delighted that I can tell you we have a new doctoral graduate in Feldenkrais. And would you do me a favour? Would you record a congratulations if I put this on and you yell out? It's okay. Yell out, "Congratulations, Dr. Smythe. We can't wait to read your work." And then I'm going to email it to him because he would get such a buzz. Huh? Cliff Smythe. Sorry, I should. Sorry, I didn't realise what I was doing this morning. Remember, I was talking to you about the guy whose thesis I've been reading. So it was his defence this morning. That's why I was sitting on the computer all morning. And so then, you know, when I got here, our panel deliberated and we've agreed that he should be awarded his doctorate. That's all happened this morning. And of course, I'm sitting there looking, and Cliff was in my training, and his wife, Deborah Bose, is a really dear colleague of ours. She's a trainer as well, who's been out here a lot. So they you know, and I've stayed in their home, and they were doing the defence from their house, and you know, we've taught here a lot together in this building, and so it's been a lovely morning. But I would just like, and I've got permission to tell you that he's now Dr. Smythe, and he would get such a buzz because he's a Melbourne boy. He would get such a buzz if you would say that. Is that okay to do? I can record it on here. Do you want to? Yeah, come close. Yeah, so that you can just all yell it out. And I realise I'm being incredibly manipulative, but I say it again for it. Congratulations, Dr. Smythe. Congratulations, Dr. Smythe. Like really say doctor. And then doctor. We can't wait to read your work. You want to do a rehearsal first? Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
Congratulations, Dr. Smythe. We can't wait to read your work.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. This is. Yeah. Yeah. We sound like school. Whatever. However you like. All he'll hear is big voices. Right. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Congratulations, Dr. Smythe. We can't wait to read your work.
I should have got the yes in there. Thank you. That's right. I'm just we should do it with everyone. Happy birthday.